everybody, welcome back to my channel. So today I am bringing you a first time cruisers tip advice video. As I've just said, I'm not a seasoned cruiser. I've literally been on one and I really enjoyed it. I did like a full kind of review style video a little while ago, so I will link that down below and in the little eye. And yeah, I just really enjoyed it, but I think there were some things that I would have really have loved to have known if I had, like, going in onto my first cruise, that kind of was like, oh, I wish I would have known that and had the hindsight. I did have some tips that were kind of given to me by people who had cruised before, but I think there were some extra things that I was like, I feel like this would be useful to someone who's never cruised before at all, coming from someone who has done their first ever cruise. Obviously, if you're looking for like seasoned cruising tips, there are some amazing channels on here, which I'm sure will give you loads of information. But this is just me giving my things that I wish I knew before I stepped on board, basically. Also, I have, not intentionally, but I have my little Arcadia bear over here. And I also have my little, like, keep cup over here. I promise this isn't sponsored or anything. I just happened to find when I looked behind me that I had quite a lot of P&O stuff behind me. As I just said, I went on P&O's Arcadia ship for New Year's, and it was amazing. I really enjoyed it. There was some definite highlights from it. And I think that with these ones, these aren't necessarily like ship specific. So obviously, again, there might be better people to talk to about that or ask questions about, but this is just kind of general things that I picked up. So the first thing is seasickness. Now, I was really apprehensive as to how I was going to be. So I do get motion sickness, but it's really varied and I can never tell when exactly it's going to hit. I sometimes get it in like the backs of cars, like big cars, if I'm in like a van or something like that, which I never would normally get. Like, I'm fine in an actual car, like even if I'm in the back seat of a normal kind of estate car or something like that. And I have been on some boat trips where I've been absolutely fine, like on a smaller boat. I've been absolutely fine, and then I've been on some where I have really struggled. So luckily I did have some like travel motion sickness tablets, and I did have the little like band things which I talked about in my other video. And I think the thing that I really wish I would have done, I wish I would have started taking the tablets pretty much straight away. I think because for me, I thought that we were going to be casting and sailing off at around 6 o'clock, and 6 o'clock came and went. And I was like, I don't feel anything, this is all fine. And I didn't realise we actually hadn't left yet. So I thought I was doing great. And then it hit me around dinner when we started to get out into the channel. Yeah, and I was fine after I'd, you know, taken it and it had gone through my system, and then I was okay. But I think I would rather not be going through that feeling, because it's not nice at all. Interestingly, I thought sometimes when I get travel sickness and travel motion sickness, I experience it at night, which is always really interesting. So I might experience it at the time, and then when I'm at night, I'll close my eyes and it will literally feel like my head is like a rolling ball behind the lids of my eyes. And I was actually okay, which was really interesting. So again, it's all situational, it all really depends, and there's no rhyme or reason. But I would definitely take seasickness tablets. Even if you do get slightly motion sickness, I would just say that just to be safe. Also as well, some people said that you shouldn't drink alcohol when you're taking that. Personally, I was fine. I didn't have any problems whatsoever. I guess because it kind of counteracts it, because you get more wobbly as you drink more, but I was absolutely fine drinking while taking them. I'm obviously not, again, a medical professional, but that's just how I was, and I was okay. Now the second tip is to do with if you like milk in your teas and coffees. So when you go in the room, you have just got like little like tubs with like the little seal on them of like milk. And obviously they're not always the nicest, and sometimes you need about 2 or 3, especially if you like a milky tea or milky coffee. The one thing that my mum said to do, which I thought was a genius idea, was to, if you end up getting a room service breakfast, or just generally room service, and it's coming with milk, to try not to use it. You get like a substantial kind of jug of milk, is then to put that jug in the fridge and then keep it for your morning teas and coffees all throughout the day, because you can really easily run out. Now obviously you can actually ask your cabin steward for more, but I think if you specifically want that, I think they do different types of milk as well, as in like, you know, oat, almond, soya, things like that. I'm pretty sure they do that. So again, if you're looking for a specific type of milk, that might be quite a good option for you, rather than like bringing it with you. Another option as well is obviously you could go to the buffet and just grab some milk from there, because again, that's all kind of readily available. This is one tip which I feel like probably is really obvious, but you don't really think about it at the time, because the thing that we found really interesting was the fact that when you are like at sea or something like that, your phone doesn't change time when you're on airplane mode. I don't know if it's just my phone, but it was actually other people's phones as well who were in our party, who were traveling with us. They didn't change time. Some people bring like a little alarm clock, which is probably a really good idea, because then you don't have to worry about relying on your phone and assuming that it's going to change, because sometimes it did and sometimes it didn't. It was really bizarre. I think it depended on where we were in our journey. And obviously if you have the Wi-Fi, I don't know whether that affects it as well, because some days we had the Wi-Fi when we were at sea, and sometimes we didn't. So one thing that we had to really be careful of was that, because we actually ordered breakfast on one day, and I think it was supposed to come at like 9, and then I think because the clock and because our phones didn't change, it obviously the time had moved on an hour because we were going further east. Yeah, so we got woken up at 8, so we were not ready for breakfast whatsoever when we had room service. So I would probably try and think of a way around that, either by setting your phone. Sometimes I think you can obviously like check the TV, and sometimes it will say like the time of what it is as you're traveling, but also as well I'd maybe bring an alarm clock, because I feel like that would be a better way, and then you can manually do that. If you think about it, when you go on a plane and then when you land and then you turn your phone on, it normally will do it automatically, but obviously you don't have that luxury when you're at sea. The next one is a little novelty one, but personally I really loved it. So when you are traveling, it's normally kind of from the first full day that you have. If you go to like the reception area, sort of that zone, you'll find a little table and they've got these daily puzzles on them. And I just think that is the most adorable thing ever. So you will find that you'll get big piles of these, and on one side there'll be a crossword, and then on the other side there'll be a Sudoku, and then also like the yesterday's or the day before's answers on there. Like I think if you had, I don't think I've got it, but like if you have like the day one, it will just be the Sudoku really big on that side. But it's just one of those things that like you don't really think about, and it's a lovely way like just to sit with it, like in a little armchair with a coffee or a drink and watching the sea go by, and then doing this. And we just kind of went every day and collected them, because I thought that was just such a lovely idea. And it's just it's a nice way as well, because you're not constantly, like if you don't have the Wi-Fi for example, and you're not constantly on your phone, it's just such a lovely thing to do, because you really kind of switch off, and it's nice to do something that isn't tech orientated, which we found really nice and very relaxing as well, and it just made you feel like you were really on holiday. Okay, the next thing is probably one that it will come in handy if you need specific things. So the great thing about having a cabin steward is they're pretty much there all the time, and you can ask them for anything extra that you think you might need. So the one thing that they have in like you can ask for is things like extra toiletries if you run out and they aren't cleaning your room until later on or whatever. You can ask for extra toiletries. So one thing that my mum said to try and get was the body lotion, because they have really nice body lotions. I think their toiletries are the White Company, which obviously is really, really nice. But if you just feel like as well, maybe if you didn't want to like bring anything with you like that, you can ask for it and normally they will have it. I think sometimes when it comes to things like toiletries like toothpaste and stuff, you might have to pay. I'm not entirely sure, but I think just generally things like that, extra soap, maybe you need like an extra pillow, or I mean some people have like really specific requests, like sometimes maybe they'll want like herbal tea in their room and then the steward will go and try and find some for you. So yeah, it's quite a nice thing that if you do feel like you need something, you can utilize that. So another thing that we found really useful, and they were actually given to us by my parents because they have cruised a lot and they kind of picked things up along the way that they really found useful. So they bought us, first of all, they bought us these like little pouches and these little kind of wire ties. Now these are really good for attaching your, almost like it's like a luggage ticket onto your luggage. And what you do is when you get to the cruise terminal, you basically give any luggage that you want to basically put on the ship straight away, like any big suitcases, maybe like suit bags, things like that. You can have these little tickets on them, and then you can give them to, it was like almost like a perk, like loads of people there, and they would take your bags and then they put them on the ship for you, and they normally will then also put them in your room or outside your room, which I think is a really lovely idea, because then you don't have to worry about like lugging it around the ship. The one thing that was really good is that these pouches are like waterproof, so if anything did happen, if it was raining, then your ticket won't run. And because you can, the idea is that you can just like loop it around and stick it like a like an airport label for luggage. But with these ones, it just means that they've got a little extra bit of protection. And as well, like the wire things that they have on there, really hard to cut, I think. The idea is that it's almost like a security thing as well, so that your luggage label on there will make sure that that goes to you and you don't have to worry about anything happening to it. Another thing that we found really useful were these like little magnetic like hooks and almost like little not quite like pins, but like things to stick to the wall, because the walls in your cabin are metallic. And so what you can do is if you've got things like tickets for your excursions, or maybe you want to put up the schedule for like classes or anything like that, you can actually pop on there. I mean, we use some of the hooks as well for like hanging things up. They're not super strong, but you can definitely hang kind of lighter items up on these hooks that we had. I think we just got them from Amazon as well, but they're super handy as well, because you don't always have a lot of like surface space. So any kind of time when you can utilize using the walls, they're great for. Okay, and then the last thing, which is something that you probably would want to think about before you even set your foot on the ship, is to check where your cabin is and where it is above and where it is below. So when we booked ours, I can't remember whether we got to choose where we were or whether they were just given to us, because again, there are different like fares, so you can like select your room. Don't think we had that this time, I'm not sure. But you got that option basically. Now we were in room G54 on Arcadia, and it was great for like motion sickness because we were quite low down and we were sort of in the middle of the ship, which works really well if you do suffer from motion sickness. However, we were directly underneath the Globe nightclub, and as you can imagine, sleeping was interesting. I think the problem is because of the fact that it is a metal, like it's metal and like sound travels, and the problem was that we got the bass. I mean, sometimes we could actually hear what song was playing, which was quite funny sometimes. The worst one I think was probably New Year's Eve, because I mean we stayed out a fair while. I think we got into our cabin about 2:30, maybe 3 o'clock in the morning. I swear this nightclub didn't close until like 4 or 5. I mean, it's not really a nightclub, it's more like it's like a place where they play music and then there's like live bands and things like that. But yeah, it was definitely quite disruptive, and I think if you are someone who's quite a light sleeper, you would probably struggle. The good thing is that on every other day, it closed at about midnight. So if you were going out in the evening and you were like, okay, I'm going to, you know, stay out for a bit and then go to bed, and maybe you got to get up early in the morning for an excursion, it didn't disturb us too much. But there was, yeah, trying to sleep on New Year's Eve was definitely quite interesting. I feel like obviously if we were elsewhere, it wouldn't have been such an issue. But that was our fault, and the fact that we just ended up with that room, and we just had to cope with it really. That was the only real complaint we had about the room itself. There we go, those are my tips for if you are a first time cruiser from a first time cruiser. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you found it helpful, because I feel like if I'd have known these things before we went away, I feel like some of the little niggly things wouldn't have been there. But that's just me. Anyway, but if you are looking at going on a cruise, I hope that you have the best time, and I hope that some of these things you can bring with you on board and you can just have the best time. As I said as well, I'm in my mid to late 20s, and I definitely think that cruising is a really good holiday option, and I feel like it's seriously underrated. So if you do want to try a cruise out, I would highly recommend it. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video.